And it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy. Your old men shall dream dreams. Your young men shall see visions. And also upon the servants and upon the handmaids in those days will I pour out my spirit, and I will show wonders in the heavens and in the earth, blood and fire and pillars of smoke. The sun shall be turned into darkness, and the moon into blood, before the great and terrible day of the Lord come. And it shall come to pass that whosoever shall call on the name of the Lord shall be delivered. For in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem shall be deliverance, as the Lord hath said, and in the remnant whom the Lord shall call. Welcome, friends, and thank you always for taking the time to join us in live broadcasts. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. We are streaming on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, Studio B, and I'm joined by my good friend, author, and host, Lisa George. Lisa, are you there, sister?
Hey, good to see you, Zen. Great to see everybody here in the chat. We're having a lively conversation about comparing weather notes, as it sounds like all of us are having some issues with our weather. It's been just rainy and stormy here for the past 12 hours or so. How's it going in Georgia, Zen?
Oh, it was immaculate, really beautiful. The past couple of days have been sunshine and just really mild. We have had some afternoon or evening rain, but during the day it clears up and it's just beautiful spring weather. All the bushes and trees and rose bushes, everything outside of my house is in bloom. The pollen is heavy, but I'm just grateful that it doesn't affect me adversely in any great manner. So I'm very grateful for that. Yourself?
Nice. I'm not complaining about the rain. Our plants need it. It's always great to have everything kind of refreshed, but our cats are complaining. So we've had to make sure we move all the cats indoors. When it rains, then they want to go back out right away. And so it's just a lot of work. It sounds like Sherry Papin in the chat is doing a similar thing, but with her plants, because it's supposed to be freezing where she's at tonight. And so she's hurrying up, trying to get all the plants in so they don't freeze after they've had some warm weather, I guess. So this craziness going on. I'm glad it's nice for you, Zen. That's good. It's a good thing.
Yeah, I'm grateful. And I do have a lot of the plants that we grow inside still. And I do have a grow light, 2 of them, one in the dining area where we get morning sunshine, and in the kitchen. We've got it loaded up with a bunch of different plants. And after the next frost, once we get to spring, which will be on the vernal equinox, then I will move things outside. But until then, just being patient and keeping things, starting some seeds and that kind of thing. But so glad spring is coming so close, and the warm weather. And already we've had these yellow and black finches that I really love, because we feed all the animals outside of bird feeders and squirrels with nuts and everything. And they have returned, so it's nice to see them flocking together and eating from the seed, and so they're beautiful to watch.
Nice. It's so beautiful in your area too, as well. I can just imagine when spring comes, everything just gets so green again, and I mean, it's always like that here. I hate to mention that part, but it is nice when spring comes, and then pretty soon we'll be into Passover, unleavened bread feast.
Yes.
That's coming up in a few weeks, so that's something to look forward to also.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that. Passover is definitely my most favorite holy day, as well as the meal. I just love the roasted lamb and all. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Any updates on yourself? Anything that you're working on, and any focus on particular research? Anything you want to mention?
Yeah, I'm actually continuing to work on a couple books. One is the health book that I started a couple years ago to supplement all of the things with my health, but I've had to tweak it a little bit and add a bunch more information now that I'm finally diagnosed with this chronic Lyme disease. And so all of the different treatments that I've been doing are included in there. And then I'm still continuing to take classes with apitherapy, with the bee sting. And so I'm about halfway through. There's about 100 lessons in all, and I'm close to lesson 50 already. So I do assignments and I turn it into the professor in Romania. But I try to do at least 3 or 4 lessons a week. And so keep up with that and just learning so much. It's just amazing. And then I'm continuing my other book. I think I'm titling it Royal Pains, where I'm doing all of the different encounters that I've had with famous people here in Hawaii, because it's just like, I think I shared a little bit with you last time, but it's overwhelming. I can't even believe, I mean, it's out of the blue where I'll just meet someone and I really don't like to have contact with these people. And a lot of times I'm not even sure who they are until afterwards, but it's very strange, but just the different interactions that I've tried to have with them as a normal people, and they're just not. So thought that would be nice to share with people who haven't met quite a few famous people. It just seems like they congregate all out here in Hawaii. I'm not sure why. Maybe there's a deep underground military base right below us or something. I'm not sure. But yeah, those are some projects. How's your project going that you're working on with your newest books then?
About 30 pages out. So I should have it completed this week. Tomorrow I'm going to be busy, but after that I'll have a few days to focus on it, and I should be able to get it done, and we'll then fulfill pre-orders and release it to the public. And after I do that, I am going to do the chapter for your book, get that information out, because I need to write that up anyways for the following book on the Remember from Whence Thou Art Fallen. That will be the follow-up. I'll be focused on trying to get that out and getting it done. I'll do one more proofread of that as well. But yeah, looking forward to completion and enjoying just being outside and the nice, beautiful weather. And, spring certainly is one of my most favorite time of the year. We have finally turned off the heat and opened up all the windows, and the fresh air is also invigorating. So loving it, loving this time of year.
Nice. I think I'm going to sign out, Zen, and sign back in, because for some reason I think that you're pretty clear from what I see in the chat. Nobody said anything about your voice quality, but you're kind of cutting in and out a bit for me. I think it's probably my connection. So give me just a sec. I'm gonna sign out and sign right back
Sure.
in, and then okay. I'll be right back.
All right. All right, and just to catch everybody up on the reason why we named the show the this perverse and wicked generation and the reason I read the passage from Joel chapter 2 about the Spirit of God being poured out on all flesh. One of my good friends, Zach Mason, he has been covering and talking about dreams for a very long time and compiling the evidence of all these visionaries as they have received certain message. And one of those messages is that the veil would be lifted, and that the things that the elites are involved in, the globalists, the very sickening things that we've covered for decades, really, on this show. And even though a lot of those things that we did on the Pizzagate, Comet Pizza, all of that, the keywords, all of the messages that were released with Hillary Clinton's email dump, all of that information, it's now coming to light, especially with the release of the Epstein files. And I'm not sure how much you have listened to or looked into that material, but nothing new under the sun. Certainly Lisa, are you back, sister?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, good.
I'm going to comment just a little bit about the Epstein character.
Yeah, sure.
I don't really. This is personally. I don't want to try to influence anyone else, but personally, from my research and from the Hollywood people that I've met out here in Hawaii, I personally think that Epstein is a character that it was created by the whoever you want to call them, the elite, the cabal, kind of to distract a lot of people from what's really going on and to give out, they always have to share what they're doing, in plain sight. And so it's kind of a way for them to have like a reveal and blame it all like on this particular character. But for my research, the character that actually plays the role of Epstein, if I could say that, lives here in Hawaii. And I've met this particular person. So looks exactly like him. It just goes under a different name out here. And actually used to frequent the elementary school that I was vice principal at one point. It was kind of a little bit creepy to me that this particular person and the wife would always just want to only visit the kindergarten and first grade classes. And everyone felt so honored because it's kind of like a famous person here in Hawaii under a different name, of course. But I just was always wondering, why don't they want to see any of the older kids? I just thought that was really strange, but that's my little experience there. So I haven't really followed it too much. I just noticed that they continue to put a lot of blame and a lot of energy into like building up this particular character as this really evil, person that's sharing DNA or whatever. And just when in my opinion, it would be like all the elite are just like that. What are your thoughts on that, Zen?
Well, I think that I don't personally know, as far as what you're talking about, but certainly I think that with Epstein and P. Diddy and all of that, those cases, that a lot of information has come up about things that have been talked about for decades now, even like with the Franklin cover-up, where we had Senator John DeCamp go out and meet these kids who were being basically pimped out, as sex slaves from the Boys and Girls Club there in Omaha, and that he wasn't sure as to the veracity of their story because they kept accusing the political elite and a lot of very wealthy individuals, even the police officers and judges and entrepreneurs and people that had, big money and political influence, of involvement in pedophilia with all of these underage kids, that they were being flown around everywhere on private airplanes, given drugs, and told to basically cater to the perverse sexual desires and needs of these individuals. And that was actually the first time that Catholic priests were implicated publicly with involvement in this kind of behavior. And of course, it is the Catholic priests that run the charities over there, the Boys and Girls Club, and they, had expressed many kids and teenagers talked about the things that they had been put through. And one of the strangest and most awkward aspects of the things that they were relaying was that these political individuals and these elitist type people, that they were involved in Satanism and that they cannibalized. And of course this was being reported to foster parents, and they were turning these kids back over to the defect system and putting them back in foster care. Many of them were unable to stay in or maintain security within a home, and they were being pushed off one to the other. And a lot of times the foster care system was placing them into homes where they would be used in like manner. and that they all testified. And what caught John DeCamp's attention, and the reason he decided to write the Franklin cover-up and also to represent these kids pro bono, was that all of their testimonies aligned together, and that they seemed to indicate the same strange things as far as rituals, babies being killed, murdered, cannibalized, aspects of adrenochrome, which are being talked about, now in the Epstein files. And they're talking about, just as we covered Pizzagate so many decades ago, Comet Pizza, and the things that were being done in that Comet Pizza, how there was an underground part of this particular restaurant that hosted Barack Obama and several other high-level politicians, and that they were selling kids. Then there was that whole thing, the leak of the Wayfair website that was selling these lockers, and they were named according to kids that happened to be missing and that had been disappeared for a very long time. And so very odd how all that came about, and it was also expunged. But there has been recent testimony and material being released by the FBI about organized auctions where billionaire industrialists, people of very wealthy means, are coming together to purchase sex slaves or maids or whatever it is that they are, and even food. I mean, it's basically like these kids are food to them, which is, being revealed in all of the Epstein files with the allusions to jerky and pizza, and how the particular restaurant owner that makes this special type of jerky, the name of his restaurant is called Cannibal, which, is should be inference and something that people should definitely read into, because there are strange truths connected to all of this material and all of this information. But anyway, so John DeCamp released this book, the Franklin cover-up, and he insinuated that, yes, this was happening to these kids, and that it went up to the highest levels of government, including George H.W. Bush, who was... I'm getting feedback from you, Lisa.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Zen. I'm trying to move around the house here so I can hear you a little bit better. But I agree with everything you just shared. I followed that part of the story quite a bit, and just wanted to add from my own experience as a former social worker that I was wondered why I never had babies on my case. I maybe had one or two when one of my clients would become pregnant and then they would give birth. But it seemed like the babies would disappear really quick. And I always had so many questions for my supervisor. They didn't have answers for me. They just said, oh, babies are very rare. And I was like, well, what happened? Like, it seemed like everybody would want to adopt these babies. Like, where did they go? They never really had answers for me. And then right now, one of my friends in Los Angeles, she's an attorney, and she's been trying to adopt her now 15-year-old cousin for the past 8 years. And her cousin is being trafficked right now. Like, she was trafficked as a child from when she was born by her father. And then she became part of this trafficking ring that is her. She's traced it down. It's actually run by social services in Los Angeles. And they really set her up for this. They placed her in a foster home, knowing that there would be another girl in there who was a trafficking victim. And she took this child when she was 13, and introduced her to the ring members, and she ran away. She was missing for like over a year. They removed her from my friend's home, even though that's her own cousin. And it's really sad how the government is totally involved in this. And the people who are higher up know about it, and they don't let a lot of the people who work under them, like what I was working as just like kind of a lower level social worker. They don't let us know like what's going on. They just make it sound like, oh, we're just helping them, we're taking away from these abusive parents, and a lot of times they are, but not every time. And there's too many children that disappeared from off my case list that there was no explanation for. So I totally hear you about that, Zen.
Yeah, I agree with you as well with regard to DFACS and Child Protective Services. I had a friend, Senator Nancy Schaefer. She was a longtime serving senator here in Georgia, and she was a state senator, and she was reporting on her findings, and it was revealed, and she was receiving documents, insider information, whistleblower information, showing that in the high levels of DFACS, that certain kids were being targeted, and that there were lists coming down from elitist sources looking for specific types of children with certain types of genetic makeup, blue eyes, long blonde hair, whatever it is that they were targeting. And she started to report on this, and even was on Alex Jones' show a couple times. But then, unfortunately, it was reported and I knew this was false when I heard it, but it was reported that her husband, who had some kind of debilitating disease, cancer or something like that, that he killed her and then killed himself, which, I don't at all believe that. And she and her husband were both Christian people, God-fearing, and would rather die exposing evil than, supporting it. So anyway, she became targeted in the same way that Cynthia McKinney, when she was also a Georgia representative here during 9/11, she came out and spoke about, the possibilities of government-sponsored terror and false flag events and all that. And she was also targeted. They always do this to anybody that brings forth real truth. They oppose them and then fund others to run against them and remove them from office. But anyways, Nancy Schaefer, she was a true hero, and she tried to reveal this to the public and to bring people to accountability. But unfortunately, she lost her life in the battle. And certainly, I'll continue to pray for her and her family, because it had to absolutely be devastating for her husband to be suicided, and her also. But you can look up that information for yourself. But anyways, it seems like now so much is coming forward as to the networks that are established everywhere, with involvement in, even with, music celebrities and stars and their fan clubs, things like that, that people are being given backstage passes, tickets to concerts and to meetings with their celebrities, and then they find themselves disappeared or, removed and put into this kind of a network. And I also believe that Natalie Holloway, the girl that went to Mexico on spring break and that ended up disappearing, that also happens quite often. It's not very often mentioned, but there is, without a doubt, to all these unsuspecting spring breakers that go to these foreign countries and go to the bars, their drinks are being spiked, they're being put out of their minds and taken and put into this kind of occupation. They're being forced to, have to work as sex workers, and they end up disappearing. Their families never see them and hear from them again. I also saw, it's everywhere now. It's so prevalent. And I remember, decades back where this was such a big, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist, oh, you're, lunatic fringe. Why would rich people, politicians, be involved in this kind of thing? And then now we have, Jim Caviezel coming forth with The Sound of Silence, which is one of the angel movies, and how they're confirmed, also sharing the testimony and the story of the one FBI agent, I believe he was. He was working on all these child trafficking, and then he decided to leave the organization because they were pulling out, and he wanted to save more kids. But that whole movie came forth July 4th of, I think it was about a year back, and it has also revealed the dirty underpinnings of this network and how it works, and how these individuals, there are really set up live auctions to sell, and that children are trafficked from, war-torn regions like Ukraine and the Middle East and different areas, and that they are being lured with promises of, oh, you can get your work visa and you can come to America, that kind of thing. But yet they find themselves being trafficked. And I'll speak about one other thing, and then I'll let you comment. Lisa, I just saw also, it was a video about a scuba diver. And this individual, he was diving for shells or treasure hunting or whatever. But he found a entire cargo container, one of those that they ship things abroad back and forth to different countries. And this cargo container was at the bottom of the ocean, like 20 or 30 feet down. It wasn't, real deep, but it was fastened, it was locked up. And so he decided to go the next day with some bolt cutters to open up the container and to see what was inside. And when he did so, he swam inside, and he found that this place had been a living quarter for some individual, and that this individual had been placed in this container and lived there for a very long time. And as he was exploring, it gave him the creeps. But he found in a Ziploc baggie a USB hard drive and a diary. And so he grabbed that stuff and then swam out quickly and went back to his house and decided to look into the USB drive and, started to read the diary. And basically, the diary was about an individual, a male subject that had been lured abroad, promised the ability to work and to have a good job. This individual was trafficked, was kept in this cargo container until he was no longer needed. But he was also a whistleblower, and I don't know how he knew, but he knew aspects of the operation, and he put that information. How he got it, I don't know, but it was contained on the USB drive, and this information was passed on to the FBI. They were able to decrypt the information, get access to it, and they learned that there was going to be an auction where these people were going to be sold off. It was like, I don't know, 27, 37 people, something of that nature. And there was all this online bidding. And then they would ship these people to those regions where those individuals live that had won these auctions. And another parallel story, and something that we had reported. Oh my goodness, it had to be back in the maybe late 2000s. But there was a Canadian court case against the elites that talked about how they would gather together in certain places there in Canada, and they would hunt these homeless people or drug addicts, people that had no families and nobody that would ask where they were and if they disappeared. And they talked about how these people would come together to hunt these individuals, and then they would, take their sexual organs as a souvenir. And that this kind of depraved behavior was being supported by the royal family. And that, I don't know if it was Prince Andrew, but of course he's been now implicated in this kind of stuff. But there are, like Epstein's Island, there are many island places all over the world that are owned by these high-level industrialists, people that have big money, big power, and, old fortune, that have everything that they could want besides just above the law impunity and status, which they do have that as well. Not just diplomatic immunity, but being the royal families and all that. They're watched over by the policing forces of the world, and they're allowed to continue in these behaviors, and they are protected. But kids like with the Hampstead story in the UK and other individuals that have come forth to talk about how this has been going on for a very long time, is still going on. Even the story of Johnny Gosh, I don't know if you know about him, but he was a kid that was abducted when he was young. He was trafficked and put into this sex slave industry. And he ended up being one of the favorite call boys of George W. Bush, that he was a male prostitute, and he would come to the White House. He came many, many times. He was found on the rolls, allowed to come to the White House at night, and he was, paid. And basically, he was also given a press pass to come in to be part of the White House media conglomerate and to ask questions directly of George Bush. And all of this was found out. And in the Franklin cover-up, George H.W. Bush was also implemented as being a pedophile and having sexual relations with a young black boy. And numerous other kids that were part of this group that was being pimped out of the Boys and Girls Club there in Omaha. But the reason I mention all of this is because the dreaming that people have had, where I mentioned about Joel chapter 2 and the Spirit of God being poured out on all flesh and people having visions. Well, one of the things that they are having visions about is all of this stuff going on and how it's going to come out, and that high-level people are going to be implicated, and that there are going to be arrests. God willing, that there will be arrests of these personalities, and that, people like Ellen DeGeneres leaving America, being implicated in the Epstein files, and also with P. Diddy and all of that. And now it's come forth that, she was one of these big partakers of this jerky, and the woman that's married to John Legend. It's just crazy. And also about how, I'm about to pass it over to you, Lisa. One last thing, and that has to do with how celebrities that are speaking out against these types of behaviors that are exposing the Illuminati, they are being targeted and disappeared. And that it seems like Jim Carrey is one of those individuals that has been replaced and that and disappeared, and that other individuals also, people are speaking about how other celebrities also have lost their lives in speaking out, which, they went after DMX. They also, Cat Williams was thrown in jail for talking about these things. But, I do believe that the believers, those that are truly working for the kingdom and trying to bring forth the truth to help those that just can't wrap their minds about the insanity taking place and the fact that this is not conspiracy but a reality. Still, people have the hardest time overcoming their cognitive dissonance to even look at or open themselves to such possibility. But I think now, with so much of it being in the face of everybody, you can't deny it anymore. Lisa?
Yeah, that the thing you were talking about in Canada, that sounds horrific. Like almost like the Hunger Games where they were hunting them. That's just so awful. I can see why you titled this show as the Perverse and Wicked Generation, because everything that you're describing is it's just so sickening, and it just makes all of us just, I'm sure, just say, come quickly, Messiah, please return.
Amen.
Because
Yes.
and it's going to get worse. I mean, it's going to get really bad during the tribulation, but we have that blessed hope, and we pray that we're covered with the protection of the Holy Spirit, of the Ruach HaKodesh, to just take care of us and to cover us with his wings like he promises to do. So for Yeshua and for the Most High to cover us with his wings. So anyway, I just wanted to talk a little bit about that too, because I'm not sure if I've shared this with you before, Zen, but the hometown that I grew up in here in Hawaii, you mentioned there being multiple islands like Epstein Island around the world. And I believe that one of them, there's several of them here in the Hawaiian Islands. And there's also, there's 8 main islands here in Hawaii, but there's a chain of smaller islands north of us that I think that there's hidden islands there that they're not even counting, and only certain elite or whoever has access to it. Because we do know that there's underground tunnels that connect all of the islands. We have multiple witnesses that have been subcontracted to do the electrical or to do something in setting up all of that. And I believe they were ancient. I'm sure they were probably from the Canaanites, or, we've talked about this area being Mu formerly. They just probably had to just reconnect all of the electrical and set up their maglev trains, and they're good to go. They can get to LA from here in like 15 minutes or something. But I say that because the island here, we have 13 military bases, major, huge military bases on this island, and Hawaii is known as like the military outpost of the West. Some of the largest in the U.S. are here, and it's such a tiny amount of land that most of it has to be underground. If it's that many, if we have at any given time over 200,000 soldiers stationed here, and or more. I'm sure there's probably even more among all of those different military bases. And just knowing what I grew up seeing in my hometown, it's probably one of the highest trafficked areas on this island, surrounded by 3 of the major military bases. An Army base, Air Force base, and a Marine base is all around in that area, just like 5 minutes from the center of the small little town, maybe 30,000 people. And this was in early 90s. I worked with at-risk youth in my hometown, and my responsibilities were to go and visit these kids in middle school and high school throughout the week, make sure they're attending classes. A lot of them were not. A lot of them had missed so much school that they were held back several grades, or else just passed just because of their size compared to the other kids, even though they weren't doing the work. And I would even go and pick them up at their homes sometimes and just bring them to school, or we had an alternative center school that they could go to make up their credits so they could at least graduate. But on the weekends, that was during the week. On the weekends, these same kids, I would see them, this is early 90s before internet or anything. I would see them parading around, especially the boys, as young as age 12 or 13, parading around in drag and like women's clothes, makeup, wigs, everything, and selling themselves to their main customers were the high-level military that were in the bases nearby. And these were like local kids, like Hawaiian, Samoan, Tongan, Filipino, and I would pull over and I would purposely drive like 5-minute drive from my house to the center of our little town where they would all walk around by where all the fast food joints were, where all the military would come in on the weekends to get food and just basically buy humans. And I would pull up next to them. They'd be so high and just like all drugged up and everything. I'd say, come on, why don't you come in my car? I'll take you to get a hot meal. We'll go home and we'll take you back to your parents. But come to find out, their parents had actually set them up to do this. In some of their cultures, it was pretty common for one of the many children in the family to be singled out as like the cash cow, I guess you could call it, where they would go and they could make up to $50 an hour. Back then, that was a lot for a 13-year-old. And then they would bring the money back to the parents, and then the family would be supported. Most of them were on government, subsidies and couldn't afford a lot. But with one of the children making that much money on the weekends, then they could try to help support the rest of the family. And it was just sad because I knew these kids from when they were like elementary school and then working their way up through high school. And then I would see them as adults even walking around the town doing the same thing. And then now with the internet, it's not quite as common. Everything is online. But back then, it would just break my heart. And they would just laugh at me. They're like, I'm not getting in your car. I'm not going to go work at McDonald's for $3 an hour. I can make $50 an hour here, and just all strung out on drugs. It's just so sad to see this in person, like what you're describing, and just have all these memories. And then to hear later on, they died young, of course, that either suicide or drug overdose, or they just don't come back to the town. They were probably abducted. But it just was so common that everyone knew in my town that you don't really want to go drive around on especially on Friday and Saturday night, or walk around down in the small little town around the fast food joints, because that's where all of the human trafficking was going on. And the cops were a part of it. I mean, you'd see the police just driving slow past all these kids dressed up like women, all these little boys dressed up like women. It's like it was nothing. And it just became like so common that they kind of normalized it in a way. But I was so horrified once I realized who these children were and that I'd known them. At that point I was in my, early to mid 20s, and I had known them since they were little, and here they were. And it was just, it's so heartbreaking to see this going on in person. And then to have it being exposed by certain people, like you said, in the media. And then those people that are exposing it something is happening to them, right? Or else at least the media is making it seem like this is what happens if you expose this type of corruption that we're doing. And
right.
And it's just really, really sad. And I just pray that, Messiah comes quickly, and that, these people are going to receive the worst, heaviest judgment of all of what they do to little children. And I just pray that either they repent and they turn, or that they are heavily judged, because this is not right. It's so wrong what's going on in the world today.
Yeah, it's absolutely the most god-awful evil. And it's depravity in, that people can't even imagine. I mean, you and I and our listeners, we've been researching and looking into these things for decades. But for people that still can't even wrap their mind around the New World Order and how this is a spiritual war, that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but the powers of principalities, the rulers of darkness, and spiritual wickedness in high places. I remember, years ago when we first started talking about this and reporting, I spoke about an individual named Kurt Barker. Now, for those of you that have never heard of this individual, he has some books. You can get them, but he was also part of the SRA, the satanic ritual abuse. In his books, he talks about how they dressed him up as a little girl and that he would be taken to these high-level elitists, these places, and he would be pimped out for weekends or whatever. That was part of his trade and what he did. But in being part of this network and being pimped out in this way, he was able to see the mannerisms of these individuals and the things that they were involved in. And he reports in his book, which one of them, the one that I recommend people check out, which again, if you're new to this information, it was probably going to be a little too heavy for you. But the name of his book is Cannibalism, Blood Drinking, and High Adept Satanism. Now, before I talk about this book, I want to share a passage. And this is something that I've shared before because it's in Micah chapter 3. It's just a few verses. But this is biblical. And this is confirming witness to this type of behavior having taken place in very ancient times. And that, again, there's nothing new under the sun. This is some stuff that still happens and that the elites are involved in even in this day and age. And back during Micah's time, he's writing about the princes of the house of Israel and how they involve themselves in this similar type of behavior. So, Micah chapter 3, verse 1. And I said, Hear, I pray you, O heads of Jacob, and ye princes of the house of Israel. Is it not for you to know judgment, who hate the good and love the evil, who pluck off their skin from off of them, and their flesh from off of their bones, who also eat the flesh of my people, and flay their skin from off of them, and they break their bones and chop them in pieces, as for the pot, and as flesh within the cauldron? Then shall they cry unto the Lord, but he will not hear them. He will even hide his face from them at that time, as they have behaved themselves ill in their doings. And so, again, nothing new under the sun. This is something that has been going on since very ancient times. Even the blood sacrifice, the offering of children, which has also been brought up, mentioned, and talked about with regard to Epstein's, the temple that he built on Little St. James, that island, the little Lolita Express island where all this was going on. But, it talks about how, and many people that were part and have seen these kind of rituals taking place, they speak about how the children are killed and cannibalized, and that these young people that are also abused and, basically exposed to SRA in this way, satanic ritual abuse, their minds are corrupted and divided, dissociative identity disorder, from being exposed to such behaviors and also being forced to participate. Like in the John DeCamp's book, The Franklin Cover-Up, many of these kids talked about how these Satanists, these high-level Satanists, that they would force them to participate in the ritual abuse of children, and also the murdering of babies, and that they would cannibalize these children. And then after that, they would grind their bones down and their teeth down so that there was no evidence remaining. Of course, we know about the guy from Vegas. He was, I can't remember his name right now, But anyways, they speak about Adrenochrome, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, Hunter Thompson. Hunter Thompson was also part of these elitist groups. He speaks about having witnessed and seen, these kind of things. He writes about it in his books. He writes about the adrenochrome. He writes about the cannibalism and, how they would participate in blood rituals, the drinking of blood. Cannibalism, we know that Maria Abramoff, who's a high-level witch that is celebrated, revered by all these elitists, that she has parties where, they basically have cakes and food made in the images of bodies, and they participate in this mock ritual cannibalism, which I don't think it's mock at all. I think that there's very real cannibalism going on. And again, with the jerky stuff that has taken place with the Epstein files. But anyways, the reason I speak about this and share this, The Cannibalism, Blood Drinking, and High Adept Satanism by Kurt Barker. It's only $7.95. It's a paperback. But in this narrative, in this story, he talks about how he was pimped out as a little girl. He would be dressed up as a little girl. He would be taken to these different houses, and how the people that he was visiting, that he would stay with, that they were cannibals, and they had access to basically like it's almost like an auction for sex slaves. But instead of paying for sex slaves, you would select, like you wanted a piece of meat, like you wanted a certain type of person or ethnicity, or, and these people have been cannibalizing people for a long time. They had a favorite. They had a favorite, type of ethnicity. They had a favorite type of eye color, whatever, for their appetites. And that these elites would basically allow people to be bought and sold, and then they would butcher them. And of course, this was a lot of immigrants, illegal immigrants, homeless people, drug addicts, that type of thing. But they would target a lot of the illegal immigrants that were coming across, because the cartels are involved in high-level Satanism as well. And they also interact and engage in these types of behaviors in the same way that you see in African nations, those people that are voodoo priests and that participate in those kind of pagan type religions, they also involve themselves in the cannibalism. There's a general Butt Naked. He was the leader of this group of youth. They were child soldiers, but he taught them, and they would go into battle high on drugs and completely naked. But after they killed the people that they were targeting, they would eat their hearts. They would eat the hearts and drink the blood, and that was part of the ritual of what they did. But anyways, this kind of thing is found all over the place. And again, I say there are high-level networks where people are being sold not only as just sex slaves, but literally as meat to be eaten. Their bodies made into jerky, that kind of thing. And so when you read these stories, this is something I read 2 decades ago when we reported on this way back then. And it was, kind of unbelievable. But now all this information that is coming out, that is being released, it shows that these people are involved in demonic, ritual, satanic abuse. And along with that is the cannibalism, the blood drinking, in the same way that the Mayans, the Druids, the Aztecs, and a lot of the pagan tribes, the Brotherhood of the Serpent, the Dragon, the Snake, all of those individuals, part of those groups that they did this same kind of thing. And so,
Wow.
yeah, completely insane. All right, go ahead, Lisa, if you'd like to comment.
I'm just gonna say that's totally a Nephilim trait, and I think we're at break actually, Zen.
Oh, you are so
250
right.
or
We're 1 minute.
57.
We're
Okay.
1 minute out.
Alrighty.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I just want it's a total Nephilim trait. It's biblical. They would eat the flesh, drink the blood. That this is how things were in the days of Noah, and they're going to be like that again, and they already are. It's just going to be more and more out there in the public. I mean, they have restaurants now in Los Angeles, New York, London. I can think of those three places that
Hold on,
actually
Lisa.
admit that they serve.
Commercials.
Okay,
All right.
okay. See you
We'll
guys
be
after
right
break.
back, everyone. All right, welcome back, everybody, for a second hour. And again, we appreciate you taking the time to listen to us. We are doing a show about this being a perverse and wicked generation, and how the Most High said that He would unveil the things that the elites were doing, to shine the light and to scatter the cockroaches. And certainly, this is a time of that kind of unveiling. Now, you had mentioned, Lisa, about how there were islands even out where you are in the Hawaiian archipelago, that I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I remember a story about how the king or the queen of Hawaii, that had ruled over the islands, that they gave an island to one of the Sinclairs when they had traveled
Yes.
through that region, and that there could be that kind of a connection, because certainly the Sinclairs are part of the Freemasons. Um,
Oh, definitely.
yeah,
Definitely. Today they're known as the Robinson family, which I think that maybe that book, The Family Robinson, was written probably about them, I mean, in their honor or whatever. But they are definitely the Sinclairs. And yeah, it was Kamehameha the third, I believe, gave them the island Niihau after, I guess, they went back to Scotland. They were in New Zealand for a bit. They went to Scotland and then they decided they wanted to live in Hawaii. So they bought the whole island. I think this was back in the early 1900s for a little less than $1 million, which is really not much for an entire island.
right.
Back
What a
then, I guess
great
it was,
deal.
but they have unlimited funds, so it
Right.
was no big deal for them. And included with the island was the natives who lived on it, got to stay there, which I don't know if I would have wanted to stay there if I was a native to live and be slaves to the Sinclairs, but that's what happened. So they also started this indigenous school that they have out here. It's kind of the most elite school for Native Hawaiians, called Kamehameha. And it's a boarding school. So the children of those people, I've never met any of them, but children of those people are said to attend that school, and they can go there for free and have free room and board and everything here on Oahu. But it's a very secluded island, and it's right next to Kauai, which ironically is the island that both Jeff Bezos and Zuckerberg have bought up almost 1/3 of that entire island now. So it's very close proximity, like probably almost swimming distance if you're a long distance swimmer, to get between those two islands. And they're just slowly buying up pieces of the land here and there. Most of Maui, not most of Maui, but a large chunk of Maui is also owned by Bezos and Oprah, and huge amount of celebrities have mansions there. I think you probably remember that whole fire incident in Maui a few years ago, and
Yeah.
none of the celebrities' homes got touched, even though they were a part of the neighborhood where all the fires were
Right.
at. None of their houses got touched. But yeah, the huge amount of that's what I mean when I say there's a huge amount of celebrities that live here. And of course you're going to have, that's why I've had so many strange interactions with them, just on in weird times. Like one time that, like the Ramseys from John Benet Ramsey case showed up at my church that I used to go to, and they sat in the front row right next to me. And I'd kind of read a little bit about them. I remember that whole thing that happened back in the 90s with John Benet. And I remember reading something about the mother, Patsy Ramsey, having cancer or something, and I was just shocked that they just showed up, sat right next to me in the front row. And so I started trying to talk to them, say, "Oh, hey, how are you doing? I've heard about that. You've been afflicted with cancer, and how's the treatments going?" This is before I knew anything about the health medical field, so I was just trying to talk to them like normal people. I look down and I note that John is wearing a Masonic ring, and then I look at Patsy, and she's just staring at me with this like blank look on her face, just the entire time I'm talking, no response. This is how it is every time if I try to interact with these people. They don't interact. They just stare at you like with these big eyes. And then this is the first time this ever happened. When I'm talking with Patsy, her eyes shapeshifted right in front of me when I'm talking to her, like slit, and then went back. Like in that movie Men in Black. That happened to me. That was so bizarre. That these are all things I'm putting in my book, but this is not just an isolated case. It's just when you live here, and especially if you're out in the public, like I was before when I was a social worker, and I was very social and going to church and going to clubs and doing all this kind of stuff. You're going to interact with these people because there's so many of them here. But yeah, it's so corrupt as well, because I mean, that was the last time I ever went to that church, just because I was so freaked out by them actually being there, and our pastor recognizing them, and they're standing up. I'm just like, who in the world? And then I found out, of course, the pastor is a part of it too. So that made sense. I quit that church. Never wanted to go there again. It was so freaky. But they're all over the place. Like, I run into them in the grocery store, just like, like I think I told you last time, a couple weeks ago, I ran into Tulsi Gabbard's mother in the grocery store when I was shopping, or Andre Agassi, or they're everywhere. It's just it's normal, I think, here. Like, locals kind of just accept that you're going to see these people, and that's just how it is when you live here in Oahu, anyway.
Well, you live in paradise, and so yeah,
Yeah,
why wouldn't they want to be there? When I used to
yeah.
spend my winters in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, that was the way of it there too. A lot of the celebrities and people like that bought a lot of land and that were trying to secure farmland, cattle land, springs and water sources and that kind of thing. Because I definitely think that water is going to become a very big issue, very very soon for a lot of communities. Um, and that a lot of what used to be the underground aquifers have been polluted and removed and tapped out. And like I saw just recently a story about how all because they dammed up the Mississippi River, all that sediment does not reach the end of the delta to replenish all of that swampland and to keep it as land rather than, now it's disappearing and the shorelines are disappearing. They're losing like a football field of land every day or something of that nature. But
Wow.
yeah, yeah. So and that's happening in a lot of places. There's nations and cities and states fighting to, we had that one time just a few years back where there was such a drought that Lake Mead and Lake Havasu over there in Arizona, the one that is created by the dam there in Las Vegas, Hoover Dam, that it
Oh,
was at
right,
its
right.
lowest levels. That kind of stuff is going to happen again. And, in the scriptures, it tells us that at the end of days, or when, what is the midpoint, and I do agree with Gary about this, that I do believe that as far as the catching away, that it will occur at the midpoint because the last 3.5 years are considered the Great Tribulation. And that's the point when the wrath is poured out on the wicked and those not written into the books of life. And I do believe that we are protected from that type of situation and that type of slaughter. But anyways, before all that comes about, certainly we are going to see the release of and the I believe the singularity that this is already something that is occurring, that AI is reaching sentience, and that they have achieved capabilities that we don't yet understand. And I think that it's not just about programming or computers or trying to implement fail-safe measures to keep AI from going berserk or, seeing humanity as a target and trying to either suppress or overcome and take over, or to just outright slaughter humanity as a lesser species. But I think that this will occur because of the fallen angel, the Nephilim use of AI and technology as a means to bring the world to the state of being that they want it to be in, and that
Yes.
they will be able to utilize AI to push, because of course Satan says he wants to be like the Most High, that he wants to
Yep.
rule over the worlds and over this kingdom, over this world rather than serve. And so that's the plan, and that's what is being pushed. And the connection with Neuralink and the mark of the beast and AI and technology is the computer chips and the being able to buy or sell. That everything is going to be digital. They're already pennies are not going to be made anymore. They're moving us
Right.
away from cash to digital, of course, cryptocurrencies and that kind of thing. But yeah, so what do you think? How do you feel about what's around the corner, and what do you see coming next?
Yeah, I used to, well, I've jumped around in what I believe there as far as the tribulation for sure, because I was raised Lutheran church. They don't believe in the rapture, the pre-tribulation rapture anyway. So then my mom and I started going to another church, more, I guess you could say Pentecostal, who tends to believe in the pre-trib rapture. So I was full on into that, Left Behind books, movies, that whole nine yards. And then about 10 years ago, when I first read Gary's book, the Genesis 6 Conspiracy Book 1, and I read the Rapture Tragedy chapter, it really woke Noble and I up to that, just because we were teaching the dispensations, we were full on into the pre-trib rapture, but we're tending to agree with you and with Gary now that I believe that it'll be mid. Because when after I read that, then I went full opposite again. Like, okay, no, we're gonna go, we're gonna go through the entire tribulation. But I tend to think it's gonna be more like mid right now. But I'm really curious to see how that's gonna play out, especially with, like you mentioned, the water shortages. It's mentioned, I believe, in the Book of Revelation that 1/3 of the oceans will be somehow gone. And I'm thinking that could be as a result of what the elite have planned for the world with the whole water shortage thing. And because if the oceans are, and if a lot of the ocean is lowered, it seemed like it would have to be the whole world, maybe lowered considerably. We might even be able to see the ancient river system again, the one that Tim Schwab and I were talking about being on the ocean floor, like the Mariana Trench, and
Right.
they're kind of carved into the ocean floor as the ancient river system of Eden. So that could be kind of exciting to be able to see some of those again and just see those in person, what they're like. But lots of interesting things coming up. I mean, I believe that I feel like I have more peace knowing that what is promised to us, and that we won't be having to go through the very heavy wrath part of the tribulation. I think that can bring some peace. But even if we would go through it, the Most High always has promised to protect the elect. And so in whatever way he chooses to do that, I have peace about it. How do you feel about that part, Jen?
Yeah, I absolutely agree, and I think I am not pre-trib at all. I'm pre-wrath, and so whatever that, and I think it's going to be that last day um, before the great and terrible day of the Lord, whether that's a week, or a month, or 3.5 years, however it plays out. I agree with you that the Most High will protect and preserve His people, and that He will speak to us through the prophets and let us know what we are to do. But I also believe that we have a responsibility to prepare ourselves and our families for the uncertainty of the times that are ahead, and that in whatever way we should at least get things like food and water and medical supplies, and maybe a solar generator or something of that nature. And I know a lot of people can't afford those kind of things, but do what you can. That's all you can do. Just do what you can. Um, Batteries,
Right.
candles, whatever, just to make it easier for you in times of uncertainty. Just like with what happened in New Orleans during Hurricane Katrina, when they blew
Oh
up the
yeah.
levees and all the groceries disappeared off the shelves, and in 3 hours, and nothing else was able to get in for several weeks. Uh, But
Right. I
yeah.
remember that.
Oh, I was going to ask
Yeah.
you also too. Speaking about the Sinclairs and the Freemasons and the Knights Templar and all that. Did you hear about the Oak Island stuff and how that all resolved and what they found?
No, I've actually no. Please update me on that, Zen. I've heard of Oak Island, and I've heard of some of the shady things that they've done there in the past. But what? Please share, Zen. I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, well, from what I understand, it's the Sinclairs also came down and had supposedly, or the Knights Templar Freemasons, they had left a treasure supposedly on that island. They've been digging and looking for it for generations, and then these two guys came in with their fortune and they started to dig and to look for the things that were said to be on that island. But come to find out, they were able to unearth this chest full of very ancient gold coins and dating all the way back to the Romans. And
Wow.
yeah, they found all
That's
this
cool.
material. But the other thing that is especially important is that they were able to find several uh, scrolls, ancient scrolls, and um, manuscripts, and supposedly there's a lot of them that were discovered,
Wow.
and so
Oh,
that
that's
would be
exciting.
interesting if that information ever comes out, and we're able uh, to read and study from it. But there are certain aspects of those things that were revealed from those teachings that have come out. I don't know with any certainty, but it seems like there was a success in finding that treasure and bringing forth these manuscripts. But
Wow.
very interesting. I love the discovery of ancient manuscripts, and I think
Oh,
that
me too.
there's going to be more and more of that. Like there's all the digitizing of a lot of the scrolls and ancient manuscripts that are found in places like St. Catherine's Monastery. So
Yes.
there are groups that are digitizing all these teachings, and that will hopefully make them available to the public, which is exciting because the more we can read, the more we can study, the more we learn the truth of our past and who we are, how we came to be here, and what all of this is about. And I certainly
Oh,
think
for
that the
sure.
Thracian Chronicles and Epistles are a large part of that revealing. And so I will be reaching out to the church sometime within the next couple of weeks to ask them not only to set up another show where they can, come forth and share current events, but also to seek, I'm going to try to seek permission to release what is available and what I do already have in English and make it beneficial to the church directly. Even if, I have to do the work and just turn it over to them and they publish it whatever way. I just want it, to be part of the public um, as far as, accessible to the public. So we'll see, and
Oh,
I'll let
yeah.
people know. Go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another thing. We're actually planning this year to go and return to the Philippines later this fall. And we're setting up an appointment with the Askaya tribe again. They wanted to kind of get to know us a little bit before they decide to release some of their ancient manuscripts to us. The main one, of course, that I'm extremely interested in, I think you are as well, Zen, is their Book of Enoch. We have to
Absolutely.
they have to translate it to English, and then I know you mentioned that you're willing to publish it and I'd love to have like a page of with their Askaya language, their pictographic, and the opposite page would be English, so everyone can kind of see how it's translated. It'd be like a first time that this has ever happened in their history. So it would be a huge deal to have them release this,
Oh, when
and
you talk
hopefully,
to them, Lisa, tell them that not only would be willing to publish it, but we'll make all the proceeds to go directly to them. to
No, that
support
would
their
be
tribe.
awesome.
Because
Yes.
it's not at all about making money. I just want the information available and to support those kind of projects and that kind of discernment. So yeah,
Yeah.
I
Oh,
would dedicate my time to doing that.
oh, for sure, for sure. It would just be such a gift when they decide. They said they will. So when they decide to do this, hopefully it'll be this year. If not this year, we're going to go back again next year. But we
Yeah.
want to build this relation. We want to build the relationship with them, with the chief's family. I got to know the chief's daughter. We had kind of a long conversation the last time we were there. The government officials that are kind of overseeing the tribe, and they're actually helping them to do fundraisers. So when I mentioned that, what you just said, Zen, their eyes kind of lit up like, oh, that'd be a really good way, because they were thinking of having them make like little handicraft things and sell them to tourists or whatever. But if it was publishing a book, that would bring in a lot more income than just like the little handcraft made stuff, you know. So
Especially a
yeah, I think
lost
that
book of Enoch. Oh my gosh,
yes,
that would go
exactly.
viral. That would be
Exactly.
enough to support their tribe all on its own, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's would be a huge gift for sure just to have that available. And it would be, I was even explaining to them how they don't realize how valuable it is. Like I was explaining to the chief's daughter and to the government officials, because no one's ever asked them for it. So until we came along. So I explained why, and why it would be such a gift to the world to just have that, because I said there's only
Exactly.
a few translations of this book available in the world right now. And you know,
Right.
we have, I think it might be 4 different ones. The one in Ethiopia, of course, and one in Dead Sea Scrolls, and I think there's 2 more. One of them is not released yet or something. I think there's like 4. I said yours would be added to that list, and it would be a major one because it would be the latest one. And and they teach their children using this book. I was asking the chief's daughter, you know, like I asked her, you know, what, because they wouldn't bring it out. That was they don't trust us enough yet. And so I was asking her because she learned from it, and I said, well, what types of things did they talk about? So the fallen angels. It sounded just like it would have been like very complementary to the Book of Enoch that we have now.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
So
I'm sure.
that's extremely exciting, but also too, like from you know, a different translation of it, which is really exciting to me, just to kind of compare that and see what lines up with the translations we have now. If there's anything extra, you know, what's not in there. I don't know. It's to me, it's so exciting.
Yeah,
But I'm like you. I think I'd rather have new translations being released in a way than even silver and gold. They're so valuable, you know.
exactly, exactly. And to have another ancient scroll of the works of Enoch, because I think the books of Enoch are the most important works, uh,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, that have ever been written. Because Enoch wrote directly from the library in heaven. He wrote
Oh
the
yeah, the
thirty-three
scribe
and the
of God.
66 books directly from what is found in the Most High's library. So yeah, to have another translation and to be able to compare it and to parallel it and to see where it differs. Oh my goodness, that would be such an amazing gift to humanity. Um,
Oh yeah. Yeah, and to have them realize exactly who they are, because they already claim to be, you know, descendants of the Levites. They know who the Levites were in the Bible. They studied the Bible when they in their school situation they have there, in kind of like their compound where the tribe lives on kind of a large acreage in the mountains. And we got to see parts of the school and parts of like where they live. And but you have to go through a government agency in order to do this, because they're protected as a native tribe. And so we're definitely staying in touch with the government workers that they escorted us up there. And they said that they like the way that Noble and I did this, because other people who try to, you know, look at the Askaya tribe, they go behind the government's back. They just show up because it's not a locked area or anything. Anybody can just go up there. And they just show up, and then they try to knock on people's doors and want to interview them, and they don't involve the government who's overseeing this whole tribe. And that's kind of disrespectful. So the way that Noble and I did it is we contacted them first. They have a whole list online of the steps you need to take to meet with the Askaya, and we did exactly everything they said on that list. And so that's what we're planning to do again this fall, and just stay in touch. I've been in touch with the government workers that we met with, and with the chief's nephew, who gave us the tour, and the chief's daughter. So we just pray that, if it's time for it to be released, that the Most High will speak to them and will trust us, and definitely we'll get that in Sacred Publishing hands, so that can get out there. And also the God Culture has offered to do the same thing as you did, Zen,
Awesome.
to
Yeah.
give the
Maybe we
prophets
can
back to
collaborate.
them.
That would be an awesome thing. I'd love to
Oh
work
yeah,
because Tim has such skill with, the pictures and maps and photographs and all of that, and we can make it
yeah.
easily available to a larger audience. So yeah, maybe that's something we can all collaborate on. But one other thing is, with regard to the ancient works of Enoch, is that I'm gonna have Stella come back on with us, and I know you were wanting to do a show on the Lost Tribe, so I was thinking we could combine that issue with also some of the ancient translations, because as she has brought forth, many of the Thracian epistles are manuscripts that were written by Enoch in ancient times. And they reveal that, Enoch also revered the holy pre-existent triune Godhead, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit as the feminine aspect of the Godhead. And so we could do both, maybe spend an hour segment on the lost tribes and an hour segment on just the lost epistles and the ancient Thracian teachings, and combine it all together. And if we can get that material out to people as well, it's going to be a mind blower, and it's going to help people to understand a lot of the things that we've been writing about and sharing and revealing in my books and in these broadcasts, because I've been talking about these for decades now, and yet it seems like it's just now coming to the attention of a lot of people, which is
Yeah.
exciting. And it feels good that people are starting to gain insight on these kind of teachings, but it's just, how long is it going to take them? And I think that if we can get these kind of materials out to people, that in reading it and studying it for themselves, it would bring them to revelation quicker.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. Reading is such an amazing gift that the Most High has given us, because it's passing the information and making sure the information does not disappear over all of these ages. And this is totally the age of information. I mean, it's in prophecy, right, that knowledge will increase in the last days. So here
Right.
we are. We're
Yes.
definitely in the last days, and all these books are coming out. Like, I was actually looking through the Lost Book of King Og while you were describing all of the blood rituals and all of the things that we talked about first hour, and how they were definitely Nephilim traits. I also sent you a video. I don't know if you had time to watch it, but I just wanted to touch on this just real quick about, there's a video that Tammy George had sent me. It's from a kind of popular truth-based YouTube channel called Woodward TV, and I've watched his content quite a bit. I don't know if you'd heard of that before, Zen.
Is it Douglas
Woodward
Woodward?
TV. Yes, I believe
Okay,
it is.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm friends with Doug. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
cool. Yeah, because he just released a video several days ago, linking the what's going on in Iran right now, the conflict in Iran, with the Nephilim, and how they have like kind of a abundance of Nephilim there, just because they're one of the main Persian entities, Asmodeus, is kind of a big deal. He's like the king of demons. We see him
Right.
in the Testament of Solomon, Tobit. I think in Gospel of Nicodemus as the king of demons, and the Talmud also. And he's like the main deity of the Kabbalah. They call him also Ashmedai. That for short, sometimes they even mention him as Hashem, which I used to think was the Most High, but it's not. It's for Asmodeus. That's kind of like a short version of it. But also they have the Div, like the divas. That's like a demonic word in Persian. And then they have the Shaitan, which we've seen in Hollywood has brought those forth. The movie The Black Stallion, that the lead character as the horse was named Shaitan. That's just another way to say Satan, and how they were all engaged in the consummation of blood. They're just like obsessed with it. Like you were saying, they can choose like what type of person they want to devour, and they have taste for certain types. And these horrific Nephilim that are that were in Iran, and I mean, I'm sure they still are. They're controlling, as they always do. They're controlling the government there, and we've seen all the evil that's come out of that area over the last few decades. And I mean, hopefully things will be changed around. But the person in the video that he was interviewing, or he played like a short interview clip near the end of the video, where there was a guy there that was I think he used to be kind of high level military, and he knew quite a bit about how demons interact worldwide. He's very well traveled and studied different cults and different Satanism basically worldwide. And he said, there's like a huge concentration there in that particular area. It used to be known as Persia. And it's mentioned in the Bible, the Prince of Persia is the one that Michael had to fight over Moshe's body with. And it's a pretty high level entity. And he believes that this conflict in Iran is similar to what they were trying to do when they used the military arm of the U.S. to go into Iraq, like a couple decades ago. There's things there that they wanted in particular. And we found this out later. They wanted some artifacts. Then also the Tomb of Gilgamesh was there. Right. Yes, exactly. So he was saying that this could be releasing like a whole nother slew of demonic entities, depending on what exactly the high level military is doing there in Iran. They're not telling us, of course, but we might find out later. And he was saying we should expect to see more possibly UFOs or demonic activity occurring worldwide because of this. They're even saying that there's some first-hand accounts of military, I believe it was in Iraq, so it's right next to Iran, saying that there were, besides Gilgamesh, but there was some other high-level Nephilim that had put themselves in stasis, which would make a lot of sense to me, because if the giants are returning in the last days, how are they going to return? I mean, we can read in certain books, I think it was the Book of the Bee, where they're locked up at the north, and then they'll be released during the last days. But they also could come back this way if they had a technology to put themselves in the stasis under these mounds or under spiritual centers worldwide, and then at a certain time they would wake up and there they are again. I'm not sure. I wanted to hear your thoughts on that, Zen, before I go in here too far.
I've got something really incredible to connect with what you just said, and I just recently saw this. It's absolutely crazy, but about the Giant's Causeway in Ireland, right? That is all these hexagonal blocks that they say is a natural occurrence, but in the mythology, it was made by Finn, a giant named Finn, and that whole place was made. All those hexagonal blocks was set up by Finn. But anyways, speaking about giants and stasis, I'll mention one thing really quick with regard to Iran, and that's in 2009, I released a video about an entire city of giants, a huge, basically like a cemetery of giant bones, and multiple, like hundreds of skeletons and bodies of giants being found in Iran. So without a doubt, Nephilim technology, things like that. And I think that's one of the reasons why Antarctica, and a long time ago when I did a show with the hijacker, I talked about how the Most High gave me a dream that there were structures under the ice in Antarctica, and that they were not dormant, but that they were, fallen angelic technologies and populaces and things going on at that time. But anyways, going back to the giant causeway, and we're going to do a show on that, Antarctica and what's been hidden and what's going on down there very soon. But with regard to the Giant's Causeway, there was an individual that was out there with an entire group of people, and he had a drone. He was looking at, flying above, just trying to get the video for his, I guess he is a YouTuber or whatever. But while he was shooting this film, an entire doorway from the giant causeway, it opened up for 11 seconds and then closed. And he got all of this on film. And then,
my goodness.
Yeah, after filming this and after this video going viral, a lot of scientists, people that had like, the ultrasound where they're able to, the ground penetrating radar and that kind of stuff, they went to the location where this supposed doorway was, and they started to do thermal imaging and also, the ground penetrating radar, the LiDAR or whatever it is. And they found that exactly where that doorway was, there was an entire hollow of what seemed to be carved out structure behind the doorway. And not only that, but they then set up these seismic recorders to see, if there was any disturbances or if there was the doorway opened up or anything anymore. And in doing that study, these other scientists, they came forth with, they had in the thermal imaging, they saw the bodies of 7 giants in stasis behind that particular wall. And they knew they were giants because they were of very large stature. And it said that, that they were, in fact, in this kind of stasis, but that they could hear breathing, that there was a rhythm of breathing being reported and being also captured by these seismic sensors. And after all of this came public, well, of course, the Irish government sealed off the entire area and now no longer allows the public to go there, to study it, to look at it, to do any kind of further testing. All of this just recently came about. But anyways, the individual that had done the study with the ground penetrating radar and the thermal imaging, she went there and did one more study before they were banned and were unable to, to investigate it freely without government involvement and censorship and all that. So she went there and did an entire new set of readings and came forth and explained. And right after she did it, she split. She left, but she did report that with the thermal imaging, it seems that there were only 6 bodies remaining, and that one had gone either deeper into the interior of the earth or wherever it was not there where it had been seen previously. And you made mention of the Cave of Treasures and the Book of the Bee, where it speaks about Alexander having locked up these giant tribes. Even the dog-headed tribes were locked into the interior of the earth at the north. And it tells us at the end of days that the Most High will release the locust army, the giants, the hybrids from this region, and they would have part to play, as it says in Joel chapter 2, in the decimation of the world at that time, because the believers will be raptured out, caught up to watch from the air along with the Messiah, all caught up with him. We will watch the wrath of God being poured out on the world at the time, and that the earth will be dissolved in fervent heat, and that there will be a new heaven and a new earth, of course, and that the mountains will be brought low, the seas brought high, the earth will be made perfectly level and pristine, snow white, again, as it says in the Revelation of St. John, the theologian. So all these
Wow.
things are part of all of that playing out and unfolding. And in Paradise, the sides of the north and the Mount of the Congregation, there's a chapter about the hollow earth and about the Mount Meru, the abysmal chasm, how the tides are created on the earth and how they have nothing to do with the moon, but they have everything to do with the abysmal chasm, the bottomless pit, as it's referenced
Yes.
in Isaiah 14, that the waters, they kick off in geyser every 6 hours, and then they abate, and they are sucked into the interior of the earth every 6 hours, and that causes the high and the low tide twice a day. But people can go to that particular book and read about all the sources and all the information that I bring out about the giants being caught up in the earth, imprisoned until the time of the end. And, we are told in Revelation 9 that upon the end of Abaddon, he will be given the key to the bottomless pit, and that opening it, that the smoke, the stench of Sheol will come forth, and that the locust army will then be released. We also know that in the book of Enoch, it cites how 4 of the archangels are caught up and being detained in the river Euphrates, and that they will be also loosed along with the giant armies and the locust armies at the end of days. And so all of that is also part of Scripture. And so we are accelerating, we are moving quickly. And I think that's why we see that we are living in and amongst a perverse and wicked generation, because the Scriptures tell us that at the time of the end, good will be evil and evil good, and everything will be turned upside down. And certainly that's where we are now.
Right. It's amazing that you mentioned that the Mount Zion, the sides of the. I was just thinking of that book yesterday because I'm kind of writing out an itinerary for what we're doing this fall, and wanted to use your wisdom to explain the tides because as I've been studying this ancient river system, I totally agree with you too. By the way, that the tides are not based on the moon, that's for sure. And that, it makes a lot of sense that they're based on that area around the magnetic mountain of the north, whatever you want to call it, the Rupus Nigra or Mount Meru, or that's the place where in Second Esdras, it describes that place as where the Messiah will judge from as the man coming out of the sea and going up on the highest mountain and judging from there. But also too, like the tides definitely have everything to do with that. But I think the ancient river system also dictates as far as the wave heights around certain times of the year. Like here in Hawaii, the north shore of Oahu is notorious for having some of the largest waves in the world, up to 40, 50 feet during the winter. But in the summertime, it's flat, like 100% flat for like 6 months. So total opposite. And the South Shore, same thing. And we're very near, if you look on Google Maps and you can see like the trenches carved underneath the ocean, we're very near what would be known as the Pishon River, which extends down and it encompasses the entire land of Havila, which is right next to where Philippines is today. And they also have a huge trench, the Philippine Trench, that goes on the east side of the Philippine Islands. And that's the side of all of the islands where they have the best surfing, ironically. Very similar to what happens here on Oahu on the North Shore when we have the ancient river system. The Pishon River is just north of us. And so I believe that the tides are definitely have to do with Mount Meru, but also the height of the waves based on certain times of the year. It seems like the river system would have a lot to do with that, where certain times of the year they're higher and lower. And I mean, the tides, it's all tied in together. It's definitely not what we've been taught, right? So that's why I'm looking forward to yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to seeing, like the river system, if the water is going to be decreased that much. So hopefully we'll be able to see parts of it even a little bit better. And there's a tide pool place that we went to this past year when we went to the Philippines, and right in the surfing area on the far east side of that island chain of the Philippines, in an island called Siargao. And that's actually where I believe the word sheer in Revelation of the Magi came from. So I was writing about that. And that Siargao has a tide pool place where this tide is so strong at a certain time of the day, it feels like you're getting your arms ripped off of you just to like hang on to the reef to stay. I mean, and it lowers significantly, very, very fast. So within 1 hour, I think it goes down like 5 feet, and then it'll go back up, in a few hours from there. But when it's down, it's so neat. You can walk around and you can see all these beautiful little tide pools that are revealed when the tide is super low. You can walk on the sand, whereas before there's like 5 feet of water, and it's just a gorgeous area, and such an amazing thing that the Most High has done to provide us with just seeing His beauty and His splendor. And he has total control over everything that's happening in the earth, is what I felt like when I was sitting on there and hanging on for dear life so I didn't get pulled out to sea. But yeah, it's amazing the things that you learn, and we have to relearn everything from what we've been taught. Like there's no way it is based on the moon. That is just ridiculous to me now.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
yes,
And for
so
people
I need
that,
to review your book.
yeah, and for people that don't know what I'm talking about or what Lisa is referencing, the bottomless pit, the abysmal chasm, which is a whirlpool surrounding Mount Meru or Mount Zion, Mount Olympus, whatever you want to call it. It's the place, the mount of the congregation, as it's referenced in Isaiah 14, that is right below Polaris, and is the place where the council of the mighty gathers together, and it's where the fallen angels try to fly up to listen to what is being proclaimed, so that they can learn about what is coming prophetically, so yeah, very interesting times. I also think that what we are going to start seeing and hearing is that a lot of ancient technologies and structures are also going to be discovered, and that people are going to be forced to reconsider our ancient past. And as I've talked about in my book on the pre-Adamites and the antediluvian world, that the fallen angels and the giants, they were here before we were, and they were the ones that set up all of these cyclopean megalithic structures and artifacts and ancient structures all over the world, and that there's more to be discovered in the ground yet and beneath the oceans than has been discovered up to this point, in my opinion. And so for those of you that want to be explorers and want to be, treasure hunters or whatever, now is the time for that kind of thing. However, the one thing you have to be very careful of and very wary of is that our national parks and our wilderness areas all over the world, they are inhabited by cryptids. And so going into those places without protection and just thinking you're going to be able to trounce in there and then out without any kind of repercussions, you have to be very, very careful, because that's another thing that is happening in this time and in this day and age, is we are seeing the spiritual and the material worlds overlap, and we are seeing the spiritual powers and principalities, the rulers of darkness and spiritual wickedness in high places, they are bleeding over into the reality of our material world. And people are starting to experience supernatural things that can't be explained and that are little understood. And so the whole world is going to be forced to acknowledge that, as Paul said, we truly wrestle not against flesh and blood, but these powers, these principalities, the rulers of darkness and this wickedness in high places. And when you look on the American currency, you see the eye of Horus detached from the rest of the material body of the pyramid. That represents the powers sitting in authority over humanity, and that the Illuminists, the agents or provocateurs, that they use that these people are just expendable for their services, and that there is no honor among thieves. They will kill you and use you and, cause your destruction just as easy as they would the slaughter of innocents. All right, Lisa, we got 4 minutes remaining. I'll give you a chance to final comment.
Oh, Zen, I can't. You said some mind-blowing things there. I can't compete with that, but I just appreciate everyone here in the show. All of you moderators are so awesome. I've been watching the chat, and you guys always keep it so friendly, and everyone's so welcoming to new people that are coming in, or just thanking everyone for such a warm welcome. And I do believe we have one of the best chats, Zen, your channel, and our channel too. We have some of the best chats on YouTube, just because of the moderators, and everyone is just so peaceable. If there's any issues that come up, the moderators are right on it. They're not off doing something else. They're watching, and they're listening, and they're contributing, and they're putting links in there of the Bible verses we're saying, of the scripture, of the books that you're referencing. Everything is here. I've never seen another chat like this when I go on other YouTube channels, and just wanted to thank all you guys you guys are just as much as part of the show as Zen and I are. And we just thank you guys so much. We couldn't do this without you. And I feel honored as well to be a moderator on your channel, Zen. I just thank you again for having this platform where we can just speak freely. For the most part, I know it's censored. We have to kind of be careful about certain words, but just speak freely and just share things that we've been researching, and not be judged for it, and not people look at you like you're cross-eyed, or look at cross-eyed at you if you say certain things, like seeing people shapeshift in front of your eyes, and just feel safe to be able to share this kind of information with our brothers and sisters here, Zen. What are your thoughts about that?
It is an awesome community, and I'm so grateful for the support of everybody here, especially the longtime moderators and those people that support the channel. It's amazing. I mean, you speak about ecclesia. Well, certainly this is ecclesia, and yes, this is one of the places of gathering where we can talk about the higher things. Speak in heightened awareness and share things that you can't just naturally discuss with other people. Most people, as you said, they'll look at you like you're cross-eyed for mentioning certain topics. But for the people that have listened to this show and that have been part of this community for a very long time, without a doubt that we have been sharing things that are now being confirmed in even the lamestream media. They are having and being forced to admit that the things that we've been speaking about, sharing, that this is truly a spiritual war, and that this, where we are now, is an acceleration towards the ends of days. All right, we are at the end of the show. God bless all of you. Thank you again for joining us. We will see you on Saturday. Be blessed all. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Zen. Shalom, everybody.
Shalom. Thank you, Tammy, Sherry, Donna, Brick, everybody moderating. We love you all, and for all the listeners. God bless all. Good night.
Good night.